What's going on, motherfuckers? Welcome to the Crocs and Hot Pockets podcast. My name is Snackers, and today is Sunday, July 19th, 2020. And this is episode number 123. Number 123, motherfuckers. And tonight on the show, we have KickedTripod. What's going on, dude?
Hey, I've never had an introduction to a podcast like that before. So that was amazing.
That's what great. Chat is. They're a bunch of motherfuckers. They're great, and they're also terrible at the same time.
I get it. Your chat's a little kinky like that. That's cool.
They are. I mean,
they like it. They like when you talk dirty to them.
That's kind of, I think on a scale from 0 to 10, as far as like dirty talk or like sex talk, we're probably at a 9. Family friendly level is way down near like the 0 to the 1. I'd say there's a solid maybe 10 or 15 minutes of stream where you can get some family friendly content in there.
I will keep that in mind for this show. I'll keep it in mind.
Yeah,
filters are coming off.
Another thing that I probably could have disclosed before is that don't worry about any filter. You can talk about penises, you can talk about nipples, like shitting on things. It's all fair game.
You're reading my mail, man. You're reading my mail. Yeah. All right.
Well, everybody, so today's podcast was inspired again by Twitter. Again, one of my favorite things to do is to get into conversations with people on Twitter, good or bad, and then eventually have people on the podcast to like talk about things in detail, to get some discussion going around. Because one, talking on Twitter sucks most of the time. Twitter's good for a lot of things, but sometimes having like a good heartfelt conversation with a human being isn't one of the greatest. And so I just want to say thank you to you for accepting the invite to be on the podcast. Not only are we going to have some good convo, but we're able to turn it into some dope content for the community as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's fun because I love it when there's somebody who I don't agree with, but also because I know we don't agree on a lot of things. And it's not even like we disagree fundamentally. It's more like based on the same things we agree on, we come to different conclusions about like how people should approach, like, I think audio and streaming and all these different things. I'm really excited to do it because most of the time it's like, no, you like, it's probably pretentious to say this, but like it's a lot of people who don't totally like know what they're talking about yet.
No,
and it's like those are the frustrating ones. Where
yes.
Instead here it's like it's gonna be a worthy. What did I say? It was like a worthy adversarial conversation. Except we're buddies and we want the same thing, and we just want to have opinions about it too.
Exactly. And what was funny was when he agreed to do the podcast, he sent me a DM afterwards and he's like, just want to let you know, we might not be on the same page. I'm like, that's totally fine. Because if we are on the same page and we agree on everything, what like the podcast would be like, man, I hate waffles. And then you say, I hate them too. And then we go, well, what the fuck are we doing here then? Also, I should have said pancakes because in my opinion, pancakes is the most overrated breakfast food in the history of breakfast food. That's just my opinion.
I'm done. This is great.
Are you out?
See ya. This is where we stop. Listen, like pancakes. I think I agree with you. The funny thing is that waffle mix and pancake mix are the same thing. So
correct.
It depends on the texture. Texture is very important. One comes in an iron, one goes in a skillet, right? The other comes to like what you actually put into it. So there's this place right down the street from me that has it's a cheese. They put this like melted cheese in their pancakes with blueberries, and it is better than any other waffle breakfast food besides an Eggs Benedict I've ever had in my life.
Oh my God. Don't get me
started. I can't tell you what kind of cheese it was. But it's good.
You're sure it was cheese and blueberries?
I'm positive it was cheese and blueberries. But it's like a very mellow cheese. Like it's like even it's I don't want to say bland, but it has like it's more about the texture of like think of like cream cheese almost.
Okay,
you know.
Yeah.
It works. It's not cream cheese. It's got like a fancy name to it. It's something that somebody on MasterChef would be like, I created you this pancake with a panna cotta, blah, 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 whatever.
Did you just spill your Coke?
I spilled my Coke a little bit.
Oh, no.
Dang it.
Do you want to take a second?
No, I think we're good. I think we're good.
I saw I saw the motion of a cup tipping, and I knew what had
really
happened.
Passionate about pancakes, man. You shouldn't have known this.
I'm so sorry. I really didn't expect that kind of reaction from you, if I'm being honest. You know what I just noticed too?
Try not to go with such controversial topics at the front. Maybe we wouldn't have this problem.
Fuck pancakes, cheese and blueberries. Let's fucking go. I just noticed that if I hadn't just swapped out both my mic arm and my shock mount, that we would have had we would have been a mirror image of each other. Like our webcams would have looked like a mirror image. I should have had a hoodie, but holy shit, it's so hot in Michigan right now. I can't, I'm sweating already.
You know, I'm in California, and just irresponsible with we budget extra for our AC. It's like we put it out of our entertainment budget. Our air conditioner, our electricity bill comes out of our entertainment budget. That's how we view AC in this house.
So you just keep it cranked then.
Solid 70, 71 during the day, 68 at night.
Wow. Oh my. Yeah. Hey man, it's your choice what you do with your money. I'm not here to tell you it's good or bad.
It's part of the budget. We literally have it budgeted into entertainment. We're like, do we want to have AC this month, or do we want to take a trip to the Bahamas? And we're like, oh, AC. Duh.
Do you know how much you pay in AC a month?
I know what our total PG&E bill is.
Okay.
I'm not ready to disclose that.
That's fine.
On the show.
As long as you know and you're aware.
I have boundaries.
Okay, that's fair. We were okay going into the pancake discussion. We're not talking about AC.
Don't talk to me about my AC bill, please. How unprofessional. Wow.
So one of the things that kind of sparked our conversation on Twitter was him actually asking, I should probably just read it word for word so that I don't stumble over my memory. What is your perception of what an XLR microphone and interface does that a USB microphone does not? What do you think benefits from those differences? And it was actually really, really cool to read through a lot of the replies. Because again, one of the greatest. Yes. What is great about Twitter is you can see everybody's perspectives. And this doesn't usually happen in technology, especially in conversations about technology. People were very cordial in their responses. They were respectful, no bashing, no swearing. Everybody was pretty nice about their responses. And so it was really cool to read through those and figure out, okay, what are the different levels of skill and knowledge when it comes to content creators? That's always one of the things that I look for is where can we place people on a scale? Do we have beginner and then just expert? Do we have consumer and then prosumer? Where are we kind of gauging where these people are at? And so it was really interesting to go through those replies. So my question is, what sparked that question? What led you to go to Twitter and try and get some feedback?
Man, so I kind of just have this thing that the how do I position this without painting myself in the corner to begin with? USB microphones, I think rightfully so, have a bad rap in the streaming, podcasting, just kind of audio industry outside of if you're a work from homer and you have a USB microphone, you're kind of cool. Be like, whoa, Doug knows technology. But if you're if you're in streaming or podcasting or gaming and stuff, a USB microphone is almost kind of oh, you don't know about XLR and interface type stuff. And I was kind of thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? Is that just because we have poorly executed USB microphones? Or because there's something inherently different, better, or superior about an XLR microphone plus interface.
Mm-hmm.
And I work right now. Right now, I'm at a technology startup that is kind of designed around creating audio and video solutions for streamers. I was on the team that designed the original GoXlr. And so I worked with two senior engineers. Their name are Lars and Jerry. And they combined, they have about 65 years of audio experience. And imagine you sit down for your first day at audio college, and you've got that professor that you look up to at the front of the thing, and they're so smart and wow and stuff, and they hand you out your textbook. The professor is the professor's a smart guy, don't get me wrong, but these guys, Jerry and Lars, their names are on that textbook. Like they wrote the textbook on this type of stuff. There are more iconic audio technology in the last like 20, 30 years than anybody I've ever seen, ever heard of in my entire life. And I have a lot of conversations with them to like just better understand the different components of like what are making up all these things. And they kind of kept coming back to like, you know, like what if you had an amazing capsule like my RE20? What if Electro Voice decided to pair it with a preamp that they felt best suited that device, and they gave it a nice DAC? What would that be? Why would that be worse than me going out and buying like a $300 interface for it? And it got me to thinking a little bit. I'm like, well, surely like this capsule, you'd have to miniaturize things. When you miniaturize things, you lose quality somewhere, don't you?
Yep. All-in-one solutions too.
But they're like, no, you don't. You don't actually lose. Like if you open up a DBX 286S, which is like one of the like creme de la creme entry to medium level audio type things that streamers use. Have you opened up and seen the inside of one of those, or like seen the pictures of it? Like,
I have. I just my
50% of it is nothing.
Right. Yeah.
And then the other 50% of that 50% is because of the physical knobs and inputs, not necessarily places that you need on the board to like process the audio.
I might, because I have a dead one somewhere. It's so, and I had to take it apart because I wanted to check out the circuit board and see if there was anything wrong with it. And I remember opening up and going, what the fuck? Why? The PCB is, like you said, like 50% of the entire unit. And it's not even like a full depth rack mount unit. But I was like, whoa, that's super interesting. There isn't that much going on here. And then, you know what? That's funny you say that too, because I remember one of the first times that I laid eyes on a Shure SM7B, and the little cable that goes from the capsule to the XLR connector is super, super fucking tiny. And I'm like, how does such crisp, amazing, natural sound come through that tiny little wire? And it always worried me that it was always so small. Like that was going to be the breaking point, but never a fucking issue.
And that's the thing is like the only difference between like you could, snap that whatever Scarlett 2i2 or whatever interface you're throwing onto the back of that SM7B. You could just like weld it onto the back of an SM7B and the Scarlett together. And technically there's no difference. It's not like there's just some magical, like heavy duty thing going on behind the scenes there. Like these circuit boards themselves are relatively straightforward. They're relatively small. The technology and the algorithm and the development and the PCB, the PCB engineer who's designing that stuff, there's a ton of expertise that goes into that. But there's not this like magic formula in the sense that, ooh, man, if you technically speaking, like from a purely hypothetical standpoint, an RE20, if the designers of the RE20 decided to create a USB version of the microphone that was paired with a preamp and a DAC and a headphone amp that was pristine for that microphone for $700. I think you'd be really surprised, and I think there'd be a lot of people who'd attack it because like there is that all-in-one thing, the choice, the blah blah blah, but like from an overall quality perspective, I would be hard pressed to say like who am I to know more than the engineer as far as what the sounds. And if you're relying on your preamp for the sound of your microphone, you're kind of like missing it anyway, because most of that is all about the EQ, compressor, de-esser, expander gate algorithms anyway.
Yep.
So it all kind of came from that. It's like, is it because just like the Yetis and the AT2020s just don't compare to, something else? Or is it like there's actually fundamentally something different in the technology? And I wanted to get people's perception on that. And ultimately what I learned is that a lot of people just have the perception that you have this miniaturization of parts, so the parts can't be as good, so that your USB microphone is going to be inherently worse. And I have learned, and I would stake a claim and rap battle anybody who like says that's not the case. It's not obviously always the case. And I think the more expensive you get, I think that becomes more and more apparent. You know, once you're starting and stacking like 6, 7 analog rack processors, sure, but we're talking, you know, in the $0 to like $600 range,
Right.
which I think for most people, especially like streamers and podcasters, when you're spending more than that, just for like signal processing your microphone, you kind of get into like the enthusiast, like, I know I don't need this, but I want it type of thing.
Oh yeah.
And so I try to exclude those as much as I can.
One of the biggest issues I found when it comes to USB is most people, like when I think about, okay, what is the user that's going to purchase this product and use it for their live stream? It's most likely one person, one microphone, one signal chain going to one stream. This isn't somebody who's going to be messing with multiple microphones, somebody that's going to have different inputs and outputs. They're just going to have a single input device that goes into their computer. I don't want to say gripe, but my reservation always with USB based devices is, where do you go for EQ? Most people that are streaming, they're told go into OBS and add VST filters. Now the issue with that is, okay, then all of that EQ only exists in OBS. If you try to use that signal chain for another application, you're kind of screwed. And so that's why I've always been such a huge proponent, an enthusiast, a prosumer. That's why I've always enjoyed the XLR equipment, because I, for one, enjoy the hardware aspect of all that. But again, when you say, oh yeah, you know, USB mics are cool, you just have to, like, I remember I have one friend, his name's Gippy. And one of the first times that he got into chat, voice chat, he had first of all, he has a sexy voice, like beyond sexy voice, but
hate people like that, by the way.
Right. Fuck them. And I said, Gippy, what mic are you?
Waffle eaters.
Hey, they're pancake eaters. We're not going to settle this tonight.
Not if they have cheese.
We'll leave, right. Blueberry cheese. You're going to have to figure out what that is, by the way, and let us know. I will.
I'll follow up.
But anyway, so I said, what mic do you have? And he said, this is a Yeti. And I said, okay, stop, sir. You are not talking through a Yeti right now. And what he had done is he had gone through Voicemeeter, added in some EQ at that level, and he was able to get that signal, that clean, crisp signal to all of his applications. How, out of 10 streamers, how many people do you think have the capability of learning how to do that and then actually implementing it into their stream?
1 to 2.
That's exactly my point. So it's hard for me to put myself in the shoes of somebody who might have that mindset. It's always so hard when people want to get dual PC setups, and you know, maybe they don't have the money to drop on a GoXlr to make it happen. And I'm like, look, there are mixers out there that can make it happen, and there's software, but you have to know that you're gonna have to put in the time to learn all this shit.
So let me throw a little GoXlr knowledge bomb on you. How many out of all the GoXlrs? So basically on the GoXlr we had to like share analytics and data button, and what it would do is just like it would kind of show like what your profile settings are, stuff like that. It didn't share names or anything, but would share like what colors are you using, what do you have assigned to the different things, what settings are you using for your EQ, and what percentage of people do you think used something different than the default settings that were given to you when they opened up the GoXlr?
Default like audio chain settings? Oh man, I feel like I'm gonna be so wrong. Out of 10 people, are we using the same metric?
Yeah, how many people do you think are using that default flat 0 on the gate, 0, 0, 0 on the EQ,
7,
20? It's 50%. About 50% of people never touch that microphone chain.
And that's what pisses me off. So you kind of just led into my next point with USB microphones. All of the things that are done by my DBX, and I'm a DBX nutbuster. I absolutely love this thing.
Sure.
A lot of things that this device has: the compressor, the noise gate, and then the output gain. Those are 3 things that people who are just getting a USB microphone and plugging it in are missing out on. And it's not necessarily that I think that USB mics are bad. It's that in my opinion, the most important things in audio for streamers is compression and noise gate, because streamers are fucking loud and nobody knows what room noise is. So mics are just fucking wide open. So, and then again, what do you do if you don't have a piece of hardware that is managing those things for you? What are you doing in order to have a noise gate in your signal chain or to be able to compress yourself? And most of the time that answer is nothing.
Well, and it's true. And that's like, honestly, that's why the GoXlr existed, right? Is the issue is not the interface part. The mixing part is a big aspect of that for sure, right? Just mixing your volume sources in general. Like GoXlr did a lot to make that really easy for most streamers and most setups. But what how do you get like just a good sound? And honestly, you don't need much, right? Like you don't need an insane EQ. A 3-band EQ is probably enough for most people. It gets you 80% of the way there, I would say, for like most people, is especially like at like the perception to the end user. So, but again, like that is, let's use the Elgato Wave. Like the Elgato Wave is really interesting to me, but I even said in my review video, I'm like, why did you do all of this and then not put a microphone chain on it?
That was my big question. That was a great video, by the way. You did a really great job covering that.
Minus this part.
Yeah. I know for a fact the first time you opened up your editing software and you started loading clips, motherfucker.
Like I can't. I have to. This is due. I gotta get it done.
I know the feeling because I bounce my leg while I'm streaming a lot, and it shakes my camera. And chat's like, "Please stop shaking your feet."
Haven't done it since. But yeah. So like the question is like, why didn't they put in a microphone chain there? You don't need this big circuit board to do it.
No. And it also it makes me think about, again, our conversation before the stream, what's coming down the road. What are these the entry products? Are they working on something down the road? And that's the exciting part. It's like, okay, people are starting to get it. Like, to think that I've been streaming since 2013 and that the GoXlr was one of the first devices to do what it did, that's fucking mind-blowing in its own.
It was mind-blowing to us too when we were developing it. We're like, how has nobody done this yet? Because ultimately all streamers and content creators need is they just need a reorganization of professional audio and video tools that are more optimized for that workflow and for that level of knowledge. So take away, there's some things that you can take away, like, or not even take away, but hide maybe under advanced menu, like soft and hard knees and distortion limiters and these different types of things that like the average user isn't going to know about and be like, this is your threshold, this is your attack, your release, and your makeup gain. Boom. These are your four core tenets of a compressor. Done. Next.
Yep.
Like, you don't need and you shouldn't need an audio degree to sound great there. And that's just something that I think either companies are unwilling to invest in, they're risk adverse, or they just don't see the market itself. And but it's always interesting to me because at every trade show, Samson is there, Audio Technica is there, Blue is there. So like they know and they recognize the market that streamers and content creators have, but they're like kind of just content with like, cool, here's a gray one with 3 months free of XSplit.
Right. You brought up a great fucking point. The fact that I've gone into a Guitar Center recently and still have not seen a live broadcast part of the store that's dedicated to live streaming and live streaming audio. It's like, Get on board, people. People fucking want this stuff. And there's people who don't want to have to order online and who have trouble ordering online. Like, build a space that people can come in, bring somebody in who knows this hardware and can talk to people about it. Best Buy actually got on board because they've got the Elgato kiosk now, and they've got like the PC gaming hardware area. But even that took a super long time.
Yeah, well, and I will say this. So there is a Guitar Center near me that has like the Rodecaster Pro set up with Rode Pod mics. They have this, I forget the name of this stupid thing. It's got like it's this big long shaft that goes like this high. It's got a webcam on it, and it's got like a microphone on it.
Yep.
And it was like all kind of designed around streamers and content creators, but like in the middle of like mixers and like these USB, like they had this like double-sided shelf of I think I would say it was more like a podcaster thing. I think that they've gotten on board with the podcaster side, but not like the streaming YouTuber vlogger side of things. And to be fair, when the streamers, YouTubers, and vloggers are just buying the pro audio and pro video equipment because there are so many resources out there to get it, it's not cheap to develop a new product, but is cheap relatively to repackage or to remarket existing products.
Yep.
And
shout out to Logitech webcams.
The stream cam. Oh, you mean Brio on its side.
Every camera since the 920 has been a abysmal marketing scheme of a piece of hardware. It makes me fun. Anytime somebody comes in and goes, hey, what camera can I get that's decent that isn't a DSLR? C920. I do not personally recommend any other camera.
Nah, I'm like, you know what? If you can get the C922 at the same price or cheaper, fine, whatever. But
I don't even go that far because I hate how the integers for adjustments for brightness and color are so vast that it's really hard to get your settings dialed in right. And even then, the color and the contrast of the C922 just still always look so off to me. So I'm just like,
disagree.
Oh, you think so?
So I might have, there's like the driverless C922, and then like tucked away in their website, they have this like really, really shitty little webcam utility that isn't part of their gaming webcam utility that has like the C920 settings, but for the C922.
Oh, so then you get the benefit.
I'm wondering, maybe I'm just on I just got the different knobs and sliders.
I think you do.
You're used to.
I think you do, because actually what I haven't been able to figure out, and this camera is my oldest C920. It's probably, like I said, 7-8 years old. That's what you're looking at right now. And compared to what everybody's looking at on stream, same lighting. That's me tuning in the settings. It just looks like absolute shit. But I have another C920. Oh, that's my feet cam. That one is actually, it looks really good. Don't question it. Just roll with it. Subscribe to my OnlyFeeds.
You gotta disclose that before guests come on your podcast.
I've got.
My God.
Sorry, yeah. I'll give you a free month after the show. My kitchen has 4 C920s, and they all look amazing. For whatever reason, this one just looks really shitty, and I only use it as a secondary camera for quick camera changes, so I don't mess with it too much.
Yeah, I kind of, once I got onto the DSLR route, I kind of never looked back.
Yep.
But yeah,
I haven't been able to want to drop that much money on it. And I know that there are cheaper options out there, like the earlier Sony cameras, and there's some earlier Olympus ones that work really great too. But I've had the Sub 2R for 2 to 3 years. It's been everything that I've needed. I've already got 4 or 5 different lenses for it. So one of those days I'll make the jump. That is, if it's before they drop the 4K 60 FPGA module for this camera, which I'm obviously going to upgrade to when it comes. So we'll see. One of my questions to you, and it kind of revolves around microphones. One of my biggest issues that I see, especially discussions on Twitter, and I used to be one of those psychopaths that would go to the Twitch Reddit to offer help to people that were posting questions.
I have the top advice thread from Twitch Reddit in 2018.
No shit.
Yeah, I wrote what everything you need to know about audio on Twitch or something like that.
I wonder if I came across it, but before I knew of you. There's a really good chance because I used to scour that Reddit like all the time.
Spent a lot of time there. I still do.
Does it? How many gray hairs a week do you get, and hemorrhoids from browsing that subreddit? Is it still bad?
It's I mean, the biggest thing that I remember is I was that person once, and I was the person who like didn't know anything. Like in 2014, 2015, when I started my content creation career, I knew nothing about audio. I got accepted as a host for a podcast because I literally I knew computers relatively well. I had a music degree, and so I understood audio well enough to where I could basically fake it. And I faked this little 4-minute a demo audition reel kind of thing. And I got chosen, and then I'm like, you know what? I want to do this, but I want to do this live, which means that I want to be able to play bumpers live, and I want my host to be able to hear it. I want to be able to mute them to the stream and be able to do all this stuff. Literally took a week off of work to do that. Said I was sick. And
we've all done it.
So but I was that, and the reason why I answered some of my questions is there was some people who I sent emails to or DMs to, or I didn't use Reddit then, but I think Reddit kind of sits in a different spot than it did 5 years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
Years ago. But there were people who helped me. And so honestly, a lot of the stuff, it's what's the best OBS settings? And I'm like, you know what? Just Google it. Okay. But there are really good kind of questions, and there are, people who genuinely have done research, who have done their best to set themselves up for success, and they're missing, they need someone to just reorient them in the right direction. And for those types of people, I will never grow a gray hair or a hemorrhoid.
Sure.
So, but there's a lot of shit there.
Yes, there is. I'll have to take a gander one of these days and go back. One of the most frustrating conversations that I see is the condenser versus dynamic microphone conversation.
Ooh,
yeah,
it's spicy.
And one of the biggest things that makes me angry is that dynamic microphones are less sensitive than condenser microphones, and that dynamic microphones, hands down, no question asked, are the better microphones for streamers. And for the most part, that can be true, but it is so dependent on that streamer's room environment and peripherals. I know so many people that still use 2035s with Scarletts that sound amazing, absolutely amazing. They have the voice for it. They have the room noise under control. They don't have loud mechanical keyboards. They aren't playing games where there's a lot of rage. They talk in not a monotone, but a mono level where they don't have a lot of inflections in their voice. And that the microphone paired with that particular streamer is absolutely amazing. But then you have the XQC type of streamer where it's mic hanging out in the corner of the desk. Gain is absolutely cranked. Somebody who's constantly slamming their desk and screaming and yelling. Yeah, maybe the condenser microphone isn't. He actually fucking has a Shure SM7B that's just on ARM. Oh God, kills me inside. But
he had a GoXlr. He couldn't set it up. He kept going into Windows, listen to this device. Wouldn't answer our DMs. Let us help. I think he returned it.
God. Well, conversation for another day. But that's one of my biggest gripes is no. There are so many applications that are really, really great for streamers, except most streamers do not fit the profile to be able to use a condenser microphone properly.
I think that's a big thing. And I think that is ultimately when people universally recommend a dynamic microphone, and again, too, we should probably even distinguish between large diaphragm condenser microphones and, large diaphragm dynamic microphones or broadcast dynamic microphones and handheld dynamic microphones.
Yep. Like stage microphones you're referring to, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
but you also need to have a conversation. It's like, do you know what the actual difference between a stage microphone, a dynamic stage microphone is, and a broadcast dynamic microphone is, as far as capsule design?
I don't.
There really isn't one. It's literally just this part. Like, look at how much of this microphone is dedicated to, and like Electro Voice has variable D, which is probably one of the few things that does like is patently different than like an SM7B versus a Heil PR40.
Okay.
But like, look at all this grill space that's dedicated just to displacing and removing, air and wind and all that kind of weird stuff, right? So look at how big this microphone is. And yeah, it's there's a lot dedicated there. Whereas if you grab it, this handheld dynamic microphone, you get these really tough like plosives immediately. There's like really kind of inconsistent and really it's foam that has to displace a lot of air in plosives in a very short amount of space.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing so, it you're either going to let those plosives through for like greater clarity, or you're going to not let them through, but you're going to lose that clarity and that the kind of richness. And so these guys are just kind of designed to not do that. But it actually has nothing to do with the capsule itself. So Ern Stevens said like SM58 and SM7B have basically the same diaphragm, but it's the tubing that goes down. It's the enclosure itself that is largely different. There are some things different, but like probably not worth going into these podcasts. But a dynamic microphone in itself is you kind of go off the assumption of, if you're a streamer, you don't. What percentage of streamers would you say have a dedicated room in their home for streaming?
Oh my God. It's definitely less than half. I mean, my gaming PC just, okay. I might have been so into the conversation that my monitors just went to sleep. That's how long it's been since I touched my mouse. Now in 2020, you see a lot of people, because so many people are coming into this space. I would take a wild guess at like 30 to 40% of people have dedicated spaces.
Right, not even. Like the stuff that we have to it is probably about 20 to 30.
Okay.
But the fundamental idea is that most people don't have dedicated space. So my approach always has to been like, you should start with the dynamic recommendation and justify the condenser versus start with the condenser and justify the dynamic. Especially now that there isn't really major price objections when you're comparing condensers and dynamics. Now that you have, the Golden Age D2, you've got the Rode Pod mic, you've got the Rode Procaster, you've got, you've got a good amount of microphones in the $100 to $250 range that both the Yetis, the AT2020, 2035, 4040s, whatever, they all kind of live in as well.
Yep.
So for me, I think if someone says, hey, I want to get into streaming, I'm going to recommend a dynamic microphone to start.
Yep.
But that's if you ever see those conversations go like, oh, you need a dynamic microphone. Again, that's people attributing the end conclusion without finding the cause. And honestly, 85% of the time, it's still probably right.
Right.
But there's that 15% of the time where, they should go with a condenser. I even say now, like the Blue Yeti up close sounds really nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Blue Yeti sounds good. You put that gain down to like 5 to 10%, get it like 3 to 4 inches from your face. Holy cow, that microphone, I like it better than the AT2020. The problem is that they sell it with a desk stand.
Yep.
Just stop selling microphones with desk stands, period. No microphone is meant to be used with a desk stand.
For a quick second, when I first saw the Wave 1 and Wave 3 like marketing ads like on their page, I saw it. I'm like, please tell me that is not a proprietary mount on that fucking microphone. And then it turns out it wasn't. But I thought there's no possible way Elgato missed the mark on that. And thankfully they didn't. But I had a quick moment where I said, there's no way. Please, God.
So so that's where it's like, I get it. And I would rather the streaming community have the, oh, you need look at dynamic microphones, because it like, I would much rather that we correct that to be like, hey, ask more like discovery questions.
Mm-hmm.
What's the room like you're joining in? I don't necessarily buy into like the, how does your voice sound? Like, I don't think you can get that conversation on Twitter or in like a Twitch subreddit conversation. There definitely is people who it's like, you compare it immediately. And like, I've set up probably 30 to 50 of the top like 500 streamers. I've set up their microphones and their EQs, their compressors, their gates, and all that kind of stuff. And like, I can at this point now be like, you know what, your voice would sound great with this microphone, because I've done it so many times with the same EQ, the same compressor, the same gate, the same de-esser, because so many of those streamers have GoXlRs.
Yep.
That like I can kind of do that, but most people can't. And like, honestly, it's just like the nature of things. Like, you probably shouldn't. But it is like, if you find that fundamental difference, like, yes, I would say when you're shopping for a microphone as a content creator, start with a dynamic microphone and then look for reasons why, you know what, actually you might be better off with a condenser.
Yep. And that's, was it GoXlr that put out the stat regarding how many people had Shure SM7Bs? Like, they did a survey on
gaming careers.
That's who it was. Okay. That was a super interesting infographic as well. Not surprising with the Shure SM7B at all. That I could see that coming from a mile away, but some of the other infographics as well, like, really made me think. And then that prior knowledge paired with your stat about how many streamers leave the GoXlr completely default. Do you think that is because it is a lack of knowledge, or because of the interest in all of the other things that the GoXlr has to offer first and not really worrying about the EQ?
If I had to attribute it to one thing, you're like, overall, what do you think the biggest barrier is for people to like leave it as default? I honestly think people are just overwhelmed and adverse to like something. I think it's just kind of confusing and new. I think it's just, it comes across as a little like terminal on your Mac or whatever, kind of be like, type in these numbers and putting these things and you're going to sound better. And I think that audio companies and gaming companies and streaming companies could do a better job at making like, what is like, this is kind of a joke, but like, what does a millennial compressor look like? Does it look like a graph with a bar and a knee and like a little thing there? Or is there a better way to visualize that for a content creator? The same way, an EQ is the best way. These just 10 sliders that don't give you like visual feedback on it. Is it a graph? Is there something else smoother and more like, I think visually obvious about what is going on?
Right.
And I think that is a really challenging questions, because you're challenging audio paradigms that have been around forever. And I think a lot of people go from the audio paradigms we have now to just, we'll let machine learning and AI do it. We'll wait for like Apple and Microsoft or whatever to come up with their algorithms. They'll throw it into the Windows 11 SDK, and then we won't actually have to ever worry about it.
RTX on.
Yeah. And like, I mean, and dude, don't get me started on like noise suppression and all that kind of stuff, because I love noise suppression. I'm a big believer in noise suppression, but people who like decided that amount was a good like parameter to say for noise suppression. And like, there's so many people who don't understand what noise suppression is actively doing. And that, I think, is one of the biggest challenges, is how do you communicate, help people understand? How do you make it obvious? And at the same time, like, how do I make it so you don't have to watch 40 minutes of YouTube videos? Yes.
So you just perfectly segued into one of my next points, and that is barrier to entry when it comes to audio and streamers. So even recently, I've gone down the rabbit hole of, okay, if somebody just has a microphone, an XLR microphone, and a cheap USB audio interface, what path can I send them on to get them a decent sound? Something that includes how to properly, like, just make sure you're not clipping is really like the first and foremost when it comes to audio for new people. Noise gate, and then some sort of compression. And it doesn't even need to be true compression. It just needs to be more so like a limiter. Like how can you set a limiter to your microphone so that you're not going above a certain decibel level? And even now, as far as software is concerned, there really isn't a lot out there. And what does exist, you obviously know what DAWs look like in the audio industry right now. Talking about the audio paradigm, that is something that has not changed. And when you throw a multifaceted DAW at somebody and say, hey, learn this.
It hasn't, I will say this, it hasn't changed on Windows. I do think it's changed on Mac.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's GarageBand.
You do have a really good point there. Yeah.
I think GarageBand, look at what GarageBand has done, and then look at it on iPhone and iPad.
Mm-hmm.
And there are footprints of, and again, this comes back to how do you rearrange those footprints that GarageBand has created that are really accessible? The fact that, anybody can, if they wanted to, sit down and record a song in GarageBand on a Mac, on an iPhone, on an iPad with little to no knowledge. How do you rearrange those footprints for something that's, for a streamer or content creator? And I don't know the answer to that question, but I do think that OBS and Voice Meter Banana and Voice Mod and Elgato would be much better served looking at GarageBand and Logic Pro 10.
Yes.
In designing their audio devices and interfaces than they would at Audacity and Reaper and Adobe Audition.
Yep.
I use the whole Apple suite of stuff to do my things, not because I think that they're more powerful, but because they're just like more fun to use. They feel better to use. I feel like I'm more in control of the tools that I have at my fingertips, and I'm probably not. Like when push comes to shove, I'm probably missing out on certain parameters that, a professional guy with all this engineering experience is going to like know and understand to the minute detail. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to, use this different compressor with this soft knee, and I'm going to add a second like soft knee below that, like a softer knee, and I'm going to use a logarithmic algorithm between the two soft knees to, like, sure. Neat, cool guy. But how much of that is like realistic for like a content creator?
And how much of that audio makes it into the end user's AirPods?
Yeah. And like, I always have a struggle. Like I always struggle with the argument of like the end user isn't going to hear it. So it doesn't matter.
Right.
Because like, it matters to me what I hear right now.
Yep.
Like it really does. I'm like, you know what? Oh, they're not going to hear. My audio is going through Discord. I'm going to turn on crisp. And then it doesn't matter if you're going to hear my background noise or not. You're not going to. But I'm like, yeah, but I still hear that background noise. I still hear that, quality in, quality out kind of thing.
Absolutely. I'm pretty sure people hate being in VoIP with me because somebody's got a bad noise gate, peaky vocals, background noise. I'm like, excuse me, can you up your threshold on your compressor by a couple decibels, please?
Yeah. It's, and by the way, the Tinkerer, I am an AirPods Pro user myself. You can see them charging right there.
I don't have the Pros.
I love them. I get them and I use them a ton. I don't use them for like audio editing, but at the same time, I don't use a whole lot for audio editing anyways. And I think, and sure, it all comes down to preference and all that kind of stuff, but there's always this balance, right? Of like, how do I get the best sounding quality? How do I get something that's acceptable to me in my studio that if I sent it to you raw, you love it? At the
Right.
same time, like, how do I not spend $3,000 and 4 years in a college to get that level of quality? And there is a happy medium there. And like I always kind of say, like, sound 20% better in your headphones than you want to sound better. You want to sound on Twitch.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like that, you're always going to be safe. Because there is going to be that one guy who like listens to you on studio headphones, and 6,500 kilobits per second on Twitch or whatever isn't a huge amount, but it's not insignificant for audio.
Absolutely. And that begs the same, that gets into the same argument of where people say there's no reason to have a 4K camera because you can't see the quality difference. I'm like, you can. Are you seeing 4K? No. But you can absolutely tell the difference between a 1080p camera when it's full screen and a 4K camera when it's full screen. 100%.
Yeah, and like I'm using a 1080p camera right now. I use the Sony I use the Sony A6000.
Okay.
And I'm like, you're right. You can, but it's a diminishing returns for me.
Yes, 100%.
I got this camera on sale for $250.
Wow.
Versus the $450 it is for the lens was full price, but like the body is normally like $448 or something like that. And I got the body for about $250. And the 4K bodies that you start getting into, like the 6100, is that the one or whatever that gets, the next one? I think it's like $648 or like $848. It's like $200-$400 more expensive. I'm like, that's just it. I don't think I'm going to see the value in that in the short to medium term. In the long term, I would, but in the long term, hopefully I can get the next thing that's out and better and different. And, I'm like, I need a new graphics card. And so you have to weigh those things as well.
You just brought up a great point. And I know that this is the way that streamers think because this used to be the way that I think. People think, okay, does a 4K camera matter on Twitch? For 90% of people who are playing video games on stream, their camera is this big in the corner, right? So are you seeing what are the returns of that resolution and that money put towards that resolution? But the way that a streamer thinks is, well, in the chance that I do a just chatting stream or whenever my camera is full screen, I want it to look as best as possible. It's like, okay, so that's 5 to 10% of your stream where your camera is full screen. What is the ROI on this $1,000 purchase? But it's really, really hard to get people out of that mindset, especially when it comes to audio.
It's so for me, and I have I want to be as delicate as possible because I don't want people to like feel called out on this. But this is something where, and I certainly struggle with myself is, there's a difference between looking and sounding great or even better. I've done things like I've spoken at Twitch cons and PAXs and BlizzCons about kind of my 3 core tenets of like great content. I've had like Total Biscuit on the show with me, amazing podcasters like Pat Crane and Scott Johnson and
Scott Johnson.
Yeah, right. So, and there's the 3 like tent poles of great quality content to me is chemistry first, content second, quality third. And that doesn't necessarily mean that like quality is the least important of the 3. It just means that when it comes down to people tuning into you over and over and over again, if you have amazing quality, but you as a person suck or the content that you're actually bringing people sucks, people aren't going to tune in long. You need a really healthy like balance of all 3 in order to kind of make that a really valuable piece of content. So I find that people who are like, for me, if I'm going to start something, I'm going to do it right kind of stuff.
Yep.
90% of the time it's an excuse to not it's an excuse, and they're not willing to hang their hat on the chemistry and personality part or the content part of their content.
Yep.
and they're using the quality, the third most important part of that content as an excuse, because and for me personally, it was just like a fear of failure. What if I'm not funny? Or what if I'm not somebody wants to listen to? Or what if I don't have something interesting to say about the games or topics that I'm discussing? And it's really easy to go, like people won't see through that if I've got this better camera or a better microphone, or if I know more, I can do more flashy things with my scenes. And I would be completely arrogant if I said like, my content is so great and my personality is awesome. Like, no, I have huge fears of that. And like, even then my first like imposter syndrome thing happened is early on, kind of what kickstarted where I am is I actually like randomly got rated by Tim the Tatman one day. That was kind of my first, I got rated there, and Trevor May was part of, he's watching Tim. I got rated. He liked the quality and the chemistry and the content of my stream. Like, do you want to do a podcast with me? So as a guy streaming to like 8 viewers 2 months into my streaming career, I was doing a podcast with a professional baseball player. And it wasn't just about like, I'm doing a podcast, but like I made a friend that I would not have had access to in any different way. If it was just my quality alone, it wouldn't have gotten me there. Like the quality helped a ton, and that was good. And I'm glad I invested in that quality. But if I would have waited until I got the quality perfect, exactly where I wanted it, that raid wouldn't have happened. That relationship with Trevor wouldn't have happened. That podcast wouldn't have happened, which wouldn't have gotten me into my other podcast, which wouldn't have gotten me into TwitchCon, wouldn't have got me to make my great friends that I did. Ultimately landed me the job where I'm at now. So it's, I get it. I just say like, there's diminishing returns and there's a barrier to entry to being a great content creator. And it's a lot lower than you might think as far as that barrier to entry goes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cause you can totally get lost in the technical aspect when it comes to barriers to entry. I have friends and ex-friends that still to this day have never started their stream or never started their podcast because they were always waiting for the perfect moment, for the perfect hardware, and
got to be in the right mood. Want to be in the right mood at the right time.
Yep.
I've seen it all, man. And it's like, I get it. And honestly, like there's some people who just like, they just love the nerdy technology hobbyist stuff of that. They don't necessarily want to be a big streamer, but when they go live, they want their stream to be the best looking. Like for that person, awesome, go for it. But if you're like, I want to be a content creator, I want to be a streamer, I want that to be like more than just whatever. Like I think, I can't remember who it was who tweeted it. I think it was Bad News Baron tweeted it as like, there are times where I have more fun tweaking my setup and getting technology and all that kind of stuff than I do actually streaming. That's totally me a lot of the time. And that's okay. But that doesn't mean like I have to be careful if that's me just being like, I just love this stuff and I want to keep doing it, and not me making an excuse for like not wanting to pursue my larger goals or wanting to have to deal with the rejection of like, what if I'm not the next big streamer or whatever, which I'm not trying to be a big streamer. Like that part of my life has sailed. I'm not trying to do any of that. Like, but you know, you have to be willing to like accept that. And that doesn't sound fun to learn, especially for a hobby.
No, not at all. So back in December, end of December, like just in the new year, there was just a series of events that had pushed me over the edge emotionally, and mentally. And I took my longest break from Twitch. I took 3 months off, not streaming at all. And then during that time, I tried to really think about what I wanted to do with my content moving forward, what type of streamer I wanted to be, you know, still trying to figure out, did I even want to be a streamer at that time? Because, you know, obviously when you're in your lowest of lows, you chop your content into pieces and you overanalyze everything that you're doing. And you can really do some serious damage to yourself when you're in those low mental points. And what I realized is something that you just highlighted on. I enjoyed the technical aspect of streaming. And my day job is I'm a network and IT admin. So I do tech support for a job. One of my main things that I love doing is helping people with their technology. Yeah. So I said, okay, well, how can I kind of, incorporate this into, because I do love live streaming. I'm not the best video game live streamer, even though I do enjoy playing
games, dude. I love games. Just like,
just suck at them.
Yeah, who wants to see a low diamond Zarya in Overwatch?
right. But it's still fun. Like streaming video games is still super fucking fun. But I started realizing that, there's actually a way that I could incorporate my passion for tech and my love for helping people. So I just started doing these live streams where it would be just chatting for 4 hours of answering people's tech questions, reviewing new and hardware and software that was coming out. And I realized, like, holy shit, this is a little corner of Twitch that I knew that I enjoyed, but I didn't know that I loved. And like just the past 2 days, I spent 8 hours on Twitch. I have this thing called the Streamer Encyclopedia. It's just a massive Google Doc that has links to everything that you want to know. And I've just been working on that live on stream, taking suggestions from people of things that should be in there.
That's great.
And holy shit, like 4 hours goes by, like just like that. And it's hard because I want to be successful on Twitch playing video games, but I know that's not what I'm going to be successful doing. And I know that I still have love for something else too. So still in the midst of kind of finding that balance.
What I think success is a little bit of the lightning in the bottle, in a bottle thing too. It's some of it is like, there's a little bit of luck to it. Like, and I don't want to get too into overanalyze it. You get that butterfly effect type thing, and I don't watch too many Ashton Kutcher movies. So, but like, like let's say I don't get this raid from Tim 5 years ago. Do I muster the courage to join a podcast? Do I use that to build up this platform enough to the point where, I'm invited to come and consult on what is the GoXlr, which turns into like my real passion. It's like, what I always thought that I wanted to be some sort of like online host or creator or communicator. And what I realized that I really love, what my real passion is, I love like actually creating ground up solutions that help areas that I'm passionate about. And the GoXlr, I came into the GoXlr after all the initial idea was done, like the parts were done, the PCBs were printed. But for me, it was just more on the side of like, what can we do with what we have now to make sure that the workflow is the best that we can? And now we're designing products from the ground up about how do we do that? And I love that. And I love solving those problems. And I love interfacing with the creators. And I love doing that. And like, I love streaming. And you know what? If I keep streaming and something comes of it, awesome, great, cool. But for me, it's that you find that like relaxing, this is a hobby now type thing, and it makes it way less stressful.
Oh my God. Yes.
And that's kind of the big thing too, is I get like queue anxiety for video games, and I get like go live anxiety for Twitch. Like as soon as it becomes an obligation to me or something, I can't do it. So, yeah, I think content creation is tough, man.
It is. I've been in this game a long time, and I've had a full-time job through all of my content creation career. And while I complain about my day job running me so hard that I can't find the energy to stream after work, when I'm putting in 10, 12-hour days, I still very much enjoy having the full-time job, having those health benefits, having the stable income, and then being able to keep my streaming stuff as a hobby. And what kind of messes people up the most, I think, is people think that streaming is this fleeting career. Like it's going to leave as fast as it came. And that couldn't be further from the truth. This shit is not going anywhere. This is the new streaming is going to be the the shit that they're teaching like trade schools, eventually it's going to get to that point. But I really enjoy having the full-time job and then being able to not have the pressure of creating the content. A lot of my community knows this, but when I first went to college, I spent 3 years learning graphic design, and I was actually going to go into graphic design for my full-time job. And then in my last semester before I dropped out, I had a class where the teacher would role play how client work went. So he would role play as the client. You would do work. He would analyze it, send it back, shit on you, move deadlines. And dealing with the client aspect of artwork made me absolutely hate art. And I was like, I will never accept money to do anything creative ever again, like to have an employer or a client. And I've kind of stood by that. Obviously I get paid by Twitch, through subscriptions and tips and stuff like that. But it's not somebody on the other end going, I want you to know what I want and create it for me. Like Twitch, I'm creating for myself and I'm doing my own thing. And I can't imagine the stress of being a full-time streamer at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting because I do think that there are a lot of streamers who are setting themselves up. Like streaming is just such a broad term. Because you have these people, a streamer who is only good at one video game and never branches out, never creates external content, never creates. I do think that they have a shelf life, and it's not a lifelong career. It's something that other people will come in and take over and do. But then you have people who are like, use the big guys, Tim the Tatman, Dr. Lupo, Nade Shot, whoever you want to, use there. Like those are people who like there's no game or no content that they can create that would reduce them to not being able to make a meaningful living off of it.
Sure.
And there's some people, I think that there are some people who like borrow on like right now I'm making, right now I have 1,000 subs. So it's enough to be like a full-time job if I live frugally.
Yeah.
And I do worry about, those are the people that I most worry about. Who like, cool, how have you set up? Like for me, like that was kind of where I was headed, where I was going. And for me, I was like, A, I don't necessarily love doing this every day. And B, what skills is this going to set me up for once I decide that, I want an office to go into one day, or I want to, like leave my mark or whatever. And, so that's where I started doing. Actually, honestly, I lucked into my job that was at TC Helicon. Totally lucked into it. And now I'm at the point where I'm consulting for some of the biggest gaming audio and video peripheral companies in the entire world, because nobody understands audio. Nobody in the gaming scene or streaming scene actually physically understands audio. And audio companies don't physically understand streaming and content creation workflows.
Yep. Oh yeah.
It's tragic. And so that that was the niche I paved out for myself. And it's something that I love doing.
You bring up a fantastic point, because the last two times that I've been at TwitchCon, 2017, 2019, how many companies are actually on the floor with audio hardware compared to powdered energy supplements? Like there's nobody right now on the surface that is bridging that gap. GoXlr obviously got into that. We see Elgato that's coming into the audio scene as well. But it was so apparent to me at that time, like, holy shit, there is a massive disconnect right now between content creators and the prosumer audio.
Well, and I also think, I would say that there's like Blue, Audio Technica, Samson, there's usually like a handful of audio companies who are there and represented. Audis was at the last TwitchCon. But the issue for me, it's not so much, it's that the actual solutions that they're presenting as solutions,
right,
don't really work. And in that perspective, energy supplements have had no problem adapting and creating and optimizing their formula for gamers. Whereas Audio-Technica hasn't done anything to create a microphone for a streamer that they wouldn't turn around and sell to a Guitar Center as a microphone for a podcaster or a microphone for a home voiceover artist. And no audio companies except for now Elgato and before that TC Helicon, which like I do say this, I think that we were really the first to actually make an audio product that was specifically designed for a streamer.
Oh yeah.
And there was faults in that too, right? We got hammered on only one XLR input using 1/8 inch inputs and outputs and needing a software running in the background kind of thing, even though all the audio processing is done on the hardware. It's like, yeah, but you're going to have a software on anyway, because if your computer is running and streaming, it's there. It's 0.1% of your RAM and CPU, like get over it kind of thing. But we got hammered for a lot of people who kind of were the pro audio purists of the last decade. And I think some of the criticism was really good. And I think some of it too is just like, bro, I get it. Go get your MG12XU and your 8 USB sound cards and leave me the hell alone. Right, damn. Right. I'm not here to convince you that your solution doesn't work better for you. I'm just saying that for most people, they don't want 12 shitty Amazon Basics USB sound card plugged into their back of their all black stupid tower.
Oh, you had some pent up aggression from doing GoXlr social media, I see. And it's funny. I have a Stein that looks exactly like the one that you have right now.
This is from VillainCon 2020 or 2017. Sorry.
Okay.
At TwitchCon 2017.
Oh no!
And
shit.
I got like a black Stein and a white Stein there. It was cool. It was one of the coolest like con parties I've ever been to.
Okay. We actually, this is funny, and I love bringing this up because I want to highlight it as much as possible. Back when the GoXlr first came out, me and Kicked had like not necessarily like altercations on Twitter, but a little puff chestness, it's a little bit of rubbing, little titty rubbing.
Our line. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And we obviously at that time probably drew conclusions about each other. Oh, this person on Twitter. And then time goes on and you have more conversations on Twitter. And I've had so many times where I've had not positive experiences with people on social media, but then you let time pass and you let more experiences come in. And then you eventually find, oh, wait, I can sit down and have a conversation with this person about something. And that's one, it's the beauty of Twitch and social media, but next, it's also the beauty of just social or podcasting in general. And I love that it always gives me, it's like ammunition, like, hey, we can't really get quality conversation, but we could do a podcast and talk about this. Like, oh, you got a podcast. Oh, shit. And then you get into talking. It's great all around.
Unless somebody like goes out and says, I have a new social media rule for myself. Unless I said like, you're dumb, you're an idiot, you don't understand, blah, blah, blah. I just assume that we're dealing with the limits of a character limit in the sense of like, here's where you're wrong. Like, blah, 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 blah. Like, oh, okay, great. You know, it's like an email you would get from like Steve Jobs back in the day. He's like, blah, 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 1, 2, 3, done. And so for me, like, I was always like, I hate interacting with, I just hate disagreeing with people on Twitter in general. And a lot of it is always like, I mean, there have been so many just like misconceptions about audio.
Oh, yes.
Just in general, right? Like that was the whole post with the USB microphone. There is physically nothing that would stop me from taking the GoXlr Mini, repackaging it, getting rid of the IO, obviously, but like the processing and even the Dice mixer USB enumerated devices and slapping them into a microphone. There's nothing there. There's nothing that stops me from putting that same DAC and that same preamp in there.
Yep.
And so a lot of the time you have to like kind of battle these misconceptions. When you're battling misconceptions, you aren't battling opinions a whole lot of the time. Some of it's like, I prefer XLR and interface because I want to be able to upgrade and switch out my mics. And I like this mic for this thing and this mic for this thing. I'm like, great. Can't you like a USB microphone for that thing? But there's very little times where it's just kind of like, well, XLR microphones sound better. Like that's just a verifiably false statement.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And so you just need that kind of like, the understanding of when it's a nuanced conversation and not to be had in 280 characters versus like, well, actually you're just wrong. And, I for me, it always struggles with, like the when it's more nuanced is like, how do you navigate those? And, yeah,
You're kind of getting into a space too where you have a lot of people out there. Like I remember when I first saw a lot of the big name streamers getting into the GoXlr. I can't remember if we talked about this before the podcast started or after, but you as a company who are releasing a product into the streaming space, you are fighting for the attention of the end user, and you are battling all of the voices of these streamers and these influencers and such. And so you have a product and you're trying to talk about it, but you're also battling these people, whether or not they're on GoXLR's side or not. You have these good voices and you have these bad voices, and you're trying to get the information to the people, but you're getting drowned out by all of these other people. And that was like one of the biggest issues for me is you had all of these streamers and content creators that were just like, oh yeah, I got rid of $1,200 equipment because it was all a waste of money, and this is now the greatest thing. And that was never really, I don't think that was ever the motto of GoXlr, was all of your shit that you already have is garbage, just go with this. But that's what it came off as when it was put into the hands of all these content creators, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we never asked. So a lot of people were like, there was a guy who used to exist who ended up turning out to be kind of just like a giant a-hole in the community, just in general, and just kind of got like, he was like one of the original Twitter cancels. I forget his name was like Corey the Deputy or like Corey the Law or something like that.
Oh my God.
What?
I remember the video. I remember his YouTube video.
So basically he created like, there was a creation of this video on, and it was just like line after line of like incorrect and inaccurate information, and that we were paying streamers and telling them not to post, or telling them to post videos not as sponsored or created or blah, blah, blah. So like, it doesn't matter. I don't work there anymore and all that kind of stuff. But the ultimate thing was like, we paid streamers to stream from our TC Helicon booth, and none of them had GoXLR. So I had a 15-second crash course. Here's how you use it. Now stream with it and tell people you like it, I guess. Like, we were not prepared at all for those types of things, but we paid streamers for to come to our TwitchCon booth. We handed out about 80 free units because that was the only marketing budget that we had.
Oh, wow.
And then we obviously paid for like our TwitchCon booth, and then we sent some free units to reviewers to review. And we were very like upfront in the sense of like, we want your honest opinion. We want your feedback on it. We want you to be honest in your review. The only thing that we did send them pre-production hardware. So like, the only thing we ask is that if you do have any hardware or software issues, please notify us first, so we can tell you if it's a bug that we've already worked on or worked through,
sure,
or if it's like something that the end user needs to know about. But this guy positioned it all as like we were just some nefarious kind of scheme or whatever. And I was a little bit blunt with him on Twitter, because it was just kind of like irresponsibly, like, he said that the GoXlr had a mono 1/8-inch output to your streaming PC, and that you could only ever stream in mono. I'm like, no, you had remember the little Nuke PCs that came out in 2018?
Yep,
those
the Intel
only had
Nux.
a mono input.
Yep.
And that was the issue. We told him that. He goes, "No, you don't know what we're talking about. I have an audio degree."
Obviously not.
The people who have the audio degree are like, we're always the most anti there. And
right.
So I kind of forgot where the original question went. So battling for voices. So we kind of had this like very guerrilla tactic of how do we be responsive? How do we, at the same time, like the people who used GoXlr, and I took through like the 30-minute, like, here's how it all works. Here's how the routing table works. Here's how the mic tab works. Here's how the mixer tab works. Streamers loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and streamers still love it and use it.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Especially with the mini now too.
Yeah, the mini was really great. We were really glad that we got it on there. It sucks now because the tariffs are still there, so they're $50 and $100 more expensive. Like, could you imagine a GoXlr mini for $200 and a GoXlr for $400 again?
Dude,
like,
I know.
That's a great price. But so you had these big streamers, and I think Classy Packs was one of them who like, he goes, I got rid of my DBX, my like MG12XU, my Cloud Lifter, and all that stuff because I liked, and I think Bad News Baron was another one of them who just like posted all their old stuff. And we never asked them to do that. All we said is, here's a thing. We want your feedback on it if you like it and what it would take for you to like it more. You're under no expectation to tweet, share, talk about it. If you do, though, that means a ton to us because we're a small team of 6. We can't pay you, and we want to continue to making these products. That's it.
Real quick, chat. I don't know if you heard that correctly. Team of 6 for the GoXlr. 6 people. Just want to make sure that was known because that blew my mind before we started the podcast.
Small team, very like a team with a lot of expertise. We did go through like 3 different software engineers. I guess. I didn't know that, but a lot of people are like, why is like it's so hard to get a change to the software? That was originally why. It's just a lot of software engineers had their hands in it, so it takes a lot of like cleaning up code.
That was actually one of the things that happened to the Sub2R team. They had a software developer who had written all of the code and had pretty much built the camera, and then one day he just walked out and disappeared, and they had to have somebody else come in, and they were able to save the project. But I can only imagine like what that would do to your project if you had one of your lead developers just walk out.
Yeah, and like thankfully no one like ever walked out and stuff. It's just like we were like what's called a tiger team. So you're just like the small team, like very just like you serve one goal and purpose. People are moving in and out to, kind of expand their horizons and to kind of get really great experience in their professional development and then get back to like the quote unquote big boy products.
Yeah.
And so there was just kind of a lot of these different aspects of this smaller, just kind of the smaller team, smaller company. And we just kind of tried our best to do that. But the streamer opinions of it were so positive that we kind of couldn't stop them from like almost over promising
right
on some of the things. And that that is, I think, what kind of bit us in the butt the most is that we never wanted, like, we knew eventually, like a lot of people, especially people who didn't fully know how to get the most out of their, like a 10-band EQ and a 4-channel compressor for most streamers is going to be better than a 3-band EQ on a $600 mixer and a 1-knob compressor. Even though ours is like technically less expensive, it's just going to work out better and there's going to be more customization. But you get these people who are like replacing thousands of dollars of gear or have a certain workflow in mind that they want to use.
Right. Which
like
is
one
another
of the
big
things
thing.
One of the paradigm shifts that we created and was hotly contested on the team was pre-fader and post-fader stems in the use of a broadcast stream mix. So as the GoXlr and the Elgato Wave does the same thing now, because honestly, I think because the GoXlr did, is you have this broadcast stream mix, which is a pre-mastered and mixed stereo channel that goes in as your mic aux and OBS or XSplit or whatever you're using. And that's it. There's no other audio devices you need to add. For 85, 90% of streamers, that's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
for 10% of streamers, that's the dumbest thing you could ever do, you stupid pieces of shit. And there's not like really a great middle ground there.
No, there isn't.
There isn't. So it's not just like, oh yeah, you're right, let us put a patch that lets you have both. Like it doesn't work that way. So we dealt with a lot of people who are like, I need to do, what does post-production look like? How do I record individual audio stems? How do I bring in my full, soundboard with my 6 different instruments to use this as well? And a lot of people have found workaround solutions for that, but we always kind of went back on the, who is this for? Are we trying to convince that this is for everybody? And are we going to try and convince everybody that, no, you're wrong, you can do this? Or do we just like lean into the fact that like some people just aren't going to get out of it what they want or need, and there are other solutions out there for them? And we eventually got to that point where, and I pushed a lot because internally there was a lot of like, it's like, tell them why that's wrong. Tell them why. And we tried that for a time. And it worked 30% of the time. The other 70% of the time, it just made them really, it gave them really negative feelings about the company and the brand and the product that we're pushing. And we had, I obviously can't say anything specifically, but obviously we had future products planned down the road, and we wanted to expand who those TC Helicon gaming products were for.
I don't want any reaction from you because you know what you know, but what a conversation that Ernst and I have always gone into, because I was somebody who bought the GoXlr and then returned it because it didn't work for me, for my very particular setup and what I wanted. Since I had purchased it, there were a lot of software updates that had came out that would allow me to actually put this into my setup and have it work now. I just haven't wanted to drop the $500 to replicate what I'm already doing with the hardware that I have. But one day I would love to consolidate this. I don't know if you've seen what my audio setup looks like.
I don't know what it looks like, but I saw a picture from 2019, so I don't know how much has changed.
Still up to date.
2 MG 10XUs.
2 Behringer 1204s.
It looks like a VT4, or like a VT4, VT3.
Yep.
A lot of cables.
Yeah. Dude, fuck cable management. So absolutely, I would love to consolidate all this and take advantage of all of the things that the GoXlr does. One thing that I would just love, and I feel like a lot of people could use if they didn't want the full GoXlr experience. I need a GoXlr that has the Midas preamps, maybe a single fader for microphone control, the 6 sample buttons, or the 6 preset buttons, the audio effects knobs, and the sampler. Like, all I want is a box where I can control vocal effects. I don't need
all. You want the right side of the GoXlr and not the mixer.
Yes, which is why I was so upset when the GoXlr Mini came out and it was the wrong side. Can you tell me, without giving me any details, can you tell me if that is doable and it's just not being done because I am not the target market? In the majority of the market.
Yeah, I won't say what we were working on at all. And honestly, I'm not there. I don't know what they're working on anymore. And I can't say, I'm under NDA for certain companies and blah, blah. But if I were, I can tell you this for sure. Most streamers don't want, or not that they don't want the right side of the GoXlr, the effects and the sampler. It's that it provides much less value to them than the mixer side.
Yeah.
And so in creating the first couple of products, for sure, you kind of have to play the numbers game. Like, listen, as much as we love you, we want you to spend your money with us. Like, there's just not enough people that are going to buy it.
Yeah.
At that point of where, small companies and startups are. It's not to say that would never happen. I think the sampler is one of the most underrated parts of the GoXlr.
Yes. Oh yeah.
The sampler is amazing. And the closest thing that you really have to that is either like a MIDI pad running through a DAW, or you have the Stream Deck, which has some like stability and reaction issues for audio
Yes.
stuff and routing stuff. And so I think that there's a market there. I'd be lying if I could tell you what that market size is, because we don't even know what the market size is for people using GoXlr mini type things and Wave 3 type things. I do have to apologize for a moment and break up the podcast for a second.
Yeah.
And say something embarrassing. I have to go to the bathroom.
That's fucking go
Can
for
I
it.
take like 30 seconds?
Yes, you can take 60. Oh, poor guy. It makes me think, oh, he's got LifeX beams behind him. It makes me think how long he's been pinching his penis just to hold in all that urine. Well, chat, as always, let me take this opportunity to say thank you all for being here. I want to touch on, again, the importance of not taking people on Twitter at face value. Like I said, we didn't really get into an altercation, but we definitely were we were harsh with each other. And, it was at a time where the GoXlr was pretty new, and I had just gotten to the point where I was pretty knowledgeable about audio, and time passed, and we were able to talk later on. And then again, just this past week, 2 or 3 days ago, he was asking a question about audio, and I'd responded, and he's like, man, I really want to have like an in-depth conversation about this. And I said, yo, got a podcast. It's pretty dope. And then here we are 2 days later on the podcast. So Twitter fucking sucks, but it's also great. So be careful out there. Okay. It's been so awesome to see a lot of you in chat hanging out. We're actually, as soon as he gets back, we're going to jump into the Q&A. I can't believe it's been an hour and 40 minutes already. This is what happens when you have fun. Oh man, he's a pusher. He pushed that urine. We weren't talking about you. What a degenerate podcast guest. Dude, the last podcast last week, I had to go to the bathroom twice. So it's okay. Dude, man, sometimes I don't know what comes over me. I've been like, this is a good question, but man, I gotta pee. Burning urine. Yeah, right, I would imagine that my requirements, because one of the main reasons that I never kept the XLR is I have a scene where I zoom in on this clown, and I use the Roland VT3. So to explain this as quick as possible. For the audio listeners, he just pointed at his face, by the way. Clown. Clown emoji. I actually use the Roland VT3 as a second audio input device because in OBS, I can set hotkeys to enable and disable audio in it. So my Roland VT3 has vocal effects on it at all times. With a single key press on one of my macro pads, I can switch to the scene that's full screen clown and enable the Roland VT3, but disable my Behringer 1204. That was a piece of functionality that I could never get with the GoXlr that I really wanted. I know that soon they're adding hotkey support or macro board support or something where it was going to be possible. I can't remember where they're exactly at with that. But being able to turn on audio devices on and off was a big thing for me. Now, if I had the GoXlr, my one button press could just be the vocal effects button. But as you know, when you're streaming, things are moving 1,000 miles a minute, and you're trying to like press a bunch of keys at the same time in order to get this skit with the comedic timing. It's one of the main reasons why I kind of give Stream Decks a lot of slack, because like you said, with audio and video and trying to time things right and the responsiveness of the unit, it kind of fucks shit up sometimes. And I really only rely on the Stream Decks nowadays for the multi-action, for folders, and like getting to special scenes for that. But even Stream Deck with trying to just program hotkeys doesn't always work. Sometimes if the software isn't run as admin or it's not in the foreground, hotkeys don't make it all the way through to the Stream Deck, and it's always been problematic for me. But if they ever go down that route where there's a GoXlr, I require more than one mic input just because of all the different streams that I do. So I'm kind of waiting for the next thing because I know that they've heard all of the criticisms of streamers around, and I know that they're going to release another unit that's just bigger and better. And I'm very much looking forward to that. Yeah, I think I will defend the GoXlr to the day I die. Because, I do too now. Like, as much as it wasn't what everybody wanted,
it created a whole new category. Elgato is just the first company in a long line, I am sure, of companies who are going to try and create something different and better for streamers for audio. And it was the right GoXlr was the right combination of like, look at all these nice necessities that you actually have always needed but didn't know you wanted, combined with like some of these really cool things that are, you know,
I didn't know I wanted to do this.
that kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
Like those types of things is like, I wouldn't go out and buy that. But now that I have something that has it, I use it from time to time. And
Sparks your curiosity.
Yeah. And if we would have like gone with just the Mini first, I don't think that GoXlr or Mini would have done nearly as well.
I never thought about that.
Because it's just a little too, here's a $200 voice meter.
Right.
And it took a lot of, and what I said when I came in is I need you to let me position this about what they wanted to do is they wanted to do more of the fun stuff. Look at all the voice and look at all the stuff. I'm like, let me position it as this is hardware audio processing in a box that is streamlined for a content creator's workflow, mainly a streamer's workflow. Let me reposition it as that. And I think we'll be far more successful than, changing the effects and look at all these different voices you can do. And look at all that. I'm like, as much as the right side is cool, that's going to have its draw on its own. It's the left side that we need to focus on marketing. Because people don't know that they want to, like, once you have Spotify on a fader, you'll never want something else on a fader. Like you'll never want to, I don't know how it'd ever stream without, or even use a computer for content creation without these different faders.
Sure.
And so, I think that it was the right product for the audio engineers of the world. It didn't go far enough, and we knew that going into it, and we ended up just having to be unapologetic about it.
Yep.
You're like, you're just not the target, dude. Sorry.
Yeah. And I think that was there was a big moment when that came out where we actually kind of got into this a little bit earlier in my stream, where there's a lot of people that are angry that other people have more money to spend than them. And the GoXlr was kind of one of these. There's a large group of people that are looking for this product specifically, and it is worth what it's priced. But that was really, really hard for people to grasp at first, because they were looking at mixers and microphones and USB mics and going, how in the hell could I stream just fine with my AT2020 and my Scarlett? Why do I need this? You're not who it's for. And you just beautifully explained that.
Yeah, it was, and it was always kind of one of those things where, and I think one of the early things I said on too is like, just so you know, you've priced yourself out of the streamer market by about $150 with a $400 product. Like $250 is kind of the max that you can kind of position any one piece of audio or video equipment.
Yep.
From the mainstream streamer. And they're like, oh, really? Shoot, darn. But like, doesn't mean you can't be successful with it. And I think it's still going to be great and fine. But like, we're not going to, advertise to everybody. We're not going to target everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was kind of, again, like a part of the success of it is like, you get this and like, you want the GoXlr, you kind of know you aren't going to be able to afford it, or that it isn't worth the investment because, you're like me, you streamed for 3 people and your subs don't pay for it or whatever. And then that GoXlr Mini is kind of coming around the corner. And that is a far more accessible, especially at the $200 price point that it launched at before the tariffs.
Right.
Like that's like, okay, you were talking $50 more than a Scarlett. At that point, it's really easy for me to say, wait another month.
Mm-hmm.
Like wait another month. The difference between $150 and a $200 product, it shouldn't be the difference for the value that you got from that. Right.
Right.
In my opinion, I think that there's some people who probably say, well, like I fell in that category, but I think 95% of people would be like, oh yeah, you're right. Just wait, pay the extra $50. So
I have one final question before I want to jump into the questions from social media and
Great.
chat. Holy shit. Oh, are you able to disclose how long the GoXlr was in or how long it was in being designed up until it was released?
Yeah, yes, let me I don't know before a certain point how it worked. I know that at TwitchCon 2017 is when it went from an idea to something bigger than that. So TwitchCon 2017, wow. Craig at the time came to TwitchCon. He was paid to go there and do research. Saw one of my panels. It was myself, Bikeman, Sacriel, Phil Elsbrecht from Elgato, and Craig sat down at a table in San Diego and had a piece of cardboard and drew out the basics of like what would the ideal streamer product be. And the five of us had something there, and that was 2017. In 2018, I was at TwitchCon again, and I didn't really hear a whole lot from Craig at the time. But he let me know a couple weeks ahead of time. He goes, "Hey, I'm coming with a physical version of the product for you and a little demo." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, cool." And so went up to his hotel room. He showed me what the GoXlr was, and all it did at that time is it switched between, I believe the A, B, and C buttons switched between like 3 different colors, and then they had one sampler button working, and then they had 3 different voice effects working.
Wow.
Like it was very, very much, and it was all on the firmware and done. So like this is like, here's kind of where we are. And I'm like, holy cow. I never expected to hear of anything again. In fact, I almost didn't take the lunch that Craig invited me to because he was just kind of like a random dude. Like I wasn't ready to have, I didn't size Craig up correctly that was going to be a meaningful networking lunch.
Sure.
It felt a little bit like, come see my wares, sir. Like, and I was going to get like MLM'd or something like that.
You're going to be selling some fucking essential oils and some Vima.
Yeah. So, but I took it. I was super glad I did. And then he goes, I was blown away by it and I loved it. And like 5 months later, sent me one of the pre-production units where, and this was before there was the original GoXlr, like software and feature set had some like glaring like issues right away. And again, it was like super alpha. And, but I still like immediately I loved it. I saw the appeal, kept in touch, gave him a lot of feedback, like every day feedback, got invited to like daily conversations. It ended up turning into a job. But yeah, so it was, if I had to take, I know for sure, obviously it was being a thing in October of 2017. And for them to be at that point, to be able to pitch it to streamers had to be at least 5-6 months before that. So.
Wow. That's actually really surprising how fast that unfolded. I thought it would be longer. But at the same time, with how fast this industry moves, it sort of kind of makes sense. But I kind of figured that it would be longer. So that's kind of crazy to me.
A lot of it is, though, and I've said this, all pro audio and video they don't need new products. They need rearranged products.
Right.
I don't need you to reimagine the MG12XU or 10XU. I just need you to enumerate multiple USB devices so that I can put it on one of every fader. I just need you to rearrange that existing technology, change the drivers a little bit, spruce it up, give me a little RGB, give me a nice little companion app, and boom, I'm there. And TC Helicon and Music Tribe had all of this IP for years. You've got Behringer, you've got Midas, you've got TC Helicon, you've got TC Electronic, all the technology and bare bones are there. Now you just need somebody to sit down from 20,000 feet and go, where do these different pieces end up landing?
Absolutely.
And these are all stories and stuff that like I know Craig has shared on interviews and things before, so I know I'm not breaking any like NDAs or anything like that.
Yeah, I always love hearing about like the beginning stories or like where ideas came together, the timelines. It's crazy to think that I was at TwitchCon in 2017 too, and just to like know that that kind of was happening in that space is super kind of surreal to me.
Yeah, it was insane. Like there's, you know, like if you're ever out there and you're invited to take a meeting in a public place where you know you feel safe, do it. It might turn into a job.
Word, man. Well, thank you for that story.
Sketchy ones.
Yeah, careful.
Careful.
All right, we are going to jump into the question and answer. If you've submitted a question, we're going to answer it in a second. We're not taking any more questions, but first, we have 3 Qs that came from Twitter. So first one from Middle Age Stream. What kind of recommendations would you make to someone who really wants to properly and easily balance their mic EQ? And I know that this person actually has a GoXlr, so you can kind of tweak that with your answer.
So there's a term, there's a completely sexist term in audio that I'm not going to use. But I'm going to call it mountains and valleys instead. Okay. Think of a 3-band equalizer, and you've got 2 mountains and then a valley. Highs, lows, mids. Generally speaking, boost your lows and highs a little bit, drop the mids a little bit, boom, you're good. But like I have a couple of videos like on my YouTube that talk through every single, like talk through a GoXlr EQ, compressor, gate, de-esser, a GoXlr mini, compressor, gate, EQ, and I go through that one-to-one, try to explain it. The problem with EQ is it's all individualized, and you're going to be tweaking it. I would be like, this isn't the EQ that I've had on my voice for the past 5 years. I've changed it and tweaked it almost weekly for the past 5 years.
I literally tweaked mine before we went live tonight because I listened back to my stream.
I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, the mids are a little bit like there's a little bit of muddies there. I'm gonna drop the 250 hertz another one. Blah blah blah. Like you're gonna have that. Your first EQ isn't gonna be perfect, but even with like keep it in the simple mode and just like figure out. Raise the lows, lower the mids, raise the highs a little bit. You'll be surprised how far that actually gets you on the GoXlr. And I've been trying to get away. I've had a Twitter conversation about this is like for audio, audio has largely been broken up, especially for EQ, has been broken up into male and female voices. In 2020, that's like it's not really, it's not an inclusive term at all. Mm-hmm. There are so many different voices and so many different genders or agenders across the spectrum. Apologies if I don't use any of those terminologies right, but so what's the right terminology for that? Because for a male voice, that works. For somebody who's got a voice more like myself or Knackers, like that works. But for somebody with a higher register voice or in a more like traditionally female voice register, that changes a little bit. And so I ask people all the time, it's like, how would an audio company in 2020 present those terminologies? Because I hope people can appreciate the nuance of that conversation. And B, it changes a little bit if you've got a higher register voice there. That's my personal recommendation. You might have different advice.
I definitely, as far as EQing advice goes, I actually don't have a whole lot of knowledge. With people ask me all the time, like, how do I get the best sounding audio? I really can't tell you what I did. I only know that I try to get, like, I go out there and I find voices that I like, and then I try to tweak it by learning what my compressor does. And that's kind of what I go after. I don't do a whole lot of EQ outside of my DBX, but I think that I've been blessed with a decent sounding voice out of the gate.
Yeah, I hate you. I actually don't have a great like broadcast voice.
Well, it sounds great. So there's that.
Because of the EQ.
Right.
And that's something I had to work over, check out over time. You should go, my first podcast, Well Met Podcast, episode 1 or something like that. Go listen to that and hear how I sound and how I speak. And it's changed over years.
Mm-hmm.
And part of my voice, like I've just gotten to think a little bit better at speaking and like using the diaphragm.
Right.
But a lot of it too is just like the EQ. Like as soon as I take the EQ off my voice and I start, just speaking normally, it's like not nearly as good. Like this is me without an EQ right now.
Flat.
It's okay. It's flat.
Yep.
It is flat. And then I have to go back, and I have my EQ mostly memorized now, so I can do this while we're still talking. Because that is the type of person that I am. So, and now we're back.
Hey, welcome back.
Hey, so there's, I would say don't overcomplicate it. Don't think that you're going to get it perfect once and then it's going to stay the same. The more comfortable you get with speaking, the better, quality in equals quality out. If I talk like this the whole time, honestly, there's nothing that I can really do with my voice.
Yeah. Or if you're just always talking on the fry edge of your voice, you're never going to get the quality that you deserve.
People love that sound, actually. People love like the raspy, like Scott John. Like think of the Scott Johnson, just like, oh man, I'm like, how do I get that? Show me that audio plugin in Logic that I can use, and you just can't.
No, that's something that you're born with. That's something that your mama gave you.
Something you're born with, or that's smoking for 20 years.
Yeah, that too. The fucking Joey Diaz type of voice.
Yeah, just like the Howard Stern of like.
Yep. I can't give a whole lot of advice on this particular question because I only know what I love and what I've done to tweak my own hardware to get it to sound the way that I do. And also know that, again, I've been blessed with a voice from my mom. This is what my mom sounds like now. My dad sounds like this. All right, next question from Noble Pastime. What do you both consider to be the most important piece of audio equipment a starting stream gets? Let me clarify. Should someone spend more money up front on just a mic or spend less money trying to get a mic and an amp and mixer or a combo for that matter? I more so meant like a USB interface or a mixer instead of an amp.
I love, and it kind of depends on what that initial budget is, because like everybody's like getting started budget is different. My getting started budget was like $700.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are like, that's for me. I find that most people that's like the $100 to $200 range.
Sure.
So assuming that that's kind of in there, for me, what I really like is look at some of the USB XLR combo microphones. There's the AT 2005.
Yep.
Audio Technica. The Samsung Q9U is coming out. I don't know when exactly it's coming out, but it's a dynamic XLR USB microphone that's large diaphragm like this.
Is that the successor to the QU2?
Q2U
Or Q2U?
Q2U. I can't. No, it's type in Q9U. Tell me it doesn't look awesome. It's $200.
Q9U?
Q9U says just pre-order now.
Oh, looks like an elongated pod mic. First of all, pod mic. Fantastic. This looks awesome as well.
The thing I like about that is it means that you don't have to invest in an interface right away, and you can get a good microphone right away. The problem with getting an interface and a microphone for $200 is that you get a $100 interface or a $100 microphone rather than a $200 audio solution.
And USB-C.
Dude, don't get me started on USB failure rates right now. Do you know why audio companies use USB-B?
It has the least failure rate out of all the different ports.
The lowest by far.
Yeah.
And you can like pull on it and yank on it in different ways and everything like that. It's just, I get it. USB-C is not sexy.
Right.
Looks like it's never totally plugged in. But
this is interesting. I didn't know this was coming out. The Samsung Samsung Q9U, a full XLR port, a USB-C port, and a headphone monitor port. I also see a a pad, and okay, cool. Pad switch. Very interesting.
Yep. There's like, I think the isn't the Samsung G Track Pro. I can't remember if that's purely USB.
I think that is.
Yeah, it looks like it is.
Yep.
Yeah, it's purely USB. So never mind, not the G Track Pro, but I would look at a microphone, basically the best USB XLR combo microphone you can get at the time for like that entry level price to get you started, and then go into the interface.
Yep. Oh yeah, because the mic, as much as people make it out to be, the mic isn't the end all be all of your audio quality. Sure, it plays a big part, but if you don't get the other parts right, then it's still not going to sound right in the end.
Yeah, well, and I think I just think that there's any of the audio interfaces, so like a Scarlett Solo or Scarlett 2i2 isn't going to do anything meaningfully for like the compression or the gating or the EQ. So like you have to get like a little mixer, and so you find like one of the cheap Behringer mixers, and like sure it has like a one knob gate and a one knob compressor and maybe like a two knob EQ, but I just like I personally am like the OBS filters at that point are just as good, if not better. Plus you have way better preamps.
Yep.
And then you can grow out of the Q9U USB part and then put it into a GoXlr Mini or a GoXlr or whatever comes out, a Rodecaster Pro, or not an alternative to GoXlr, by the way. Stop it.
No,
Stop it. Different.
I also never recommend any Focusrite products to anybody unless they're streaming from macOS.
I did 4 years ago. Yeah. Once their third generation stuff came out, I noticed a lot of people having driver issues and stability issues.
Still to this day.
So
to this day,
I'm on the Motu train right now.
Okay.
Like
I actually just found out about them. We're doing a stream where we're adding hardware to the Streamer Encyclopedia, and then I'm like, what the fuck is Motu? And that actually got me onto the Audient train as well.
Yep, Audient's great. I love the Motu M2. Like that's kind of my like really nice in quote unquote entry level interface.
I think I have that one as at entry. I like where you went. I'm gonna kind of go in a little bit opposite of direction and say the most important piece of hardware is a boom arm that gets the microphone close to your mouth.
Sure. That is true. No, that's really, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, absolutely.
I would say I love the answer that you gave because it kind of covers all of the bases and it leaves room for expandability on the other end as well.
And the microphones, all the microphones I recommended don't come with desk stands. So you're going to need a boom arm anyway.
Yep. And nowadays you really don't have to go with the, PSA 1. Yeah. Which I actually used for 5 years. You got it. That's what you got right now. So I just got, did you happen to see the, anything on social media that I put regarding this new arm that I got?
I don't think I was following you. I think I was still angry at you.
That's okay. We're past it now, right? We're buddies. Maybe.
We'll see.
I like pancakes.
All right, we're good.
Okay. I got the Vivo kind of low profile arm, the one that is supposed to come under your monitor and then come up.
Oh, the monitor arm stands that have an XLR input.
Why does everybody? I hate that people say that. I mean, it's kind of true, but yes, the pole mount is behind my monitors and it comes up underneath and then comes up, and I absolutely fucking love it. And it's actually only $80. The only problem is it doesn't have as much reach as the PSA 1 or the Compass.
So number one, I bought my wife an InnoGear. So the biggest thing I don't like about boom arms is exposed springs.
Yep.
So you get like a hidden spring version of them, so you don't hear all the creak, and they don't wear out as quickly. And so I got my wife an InnoGear one, and it was like $55. And it's a little stiff, but you can adjust the torque if you have a flathead screwdriver.
Okay. Yeah, that's the same. No exposed springs, no spring noise. It has hex tensions for each one of the joints. And I absolutely love it. I can see all of
I would
my
have
monitors.
to see the biggest issue, and like this is kind of like the worst microphone to have with those types because I would have to like flip it upside down. But the only concern I have about those, which is totally fine, you just have to weigh if that's an issue for you, is if it gets in the way of your like keyboard microphone using stuff, which is not it's not a difficult mental trial to figure out if that is you.
Right.
It's like, yeah. So I think that they're really cool, and I've had a few people ask me about them, and I just don't have any experience with them. But I believe that if that's not a concern for you, I bet you that they're great.
I have one keyboard, two 1UP keyboard Sweet 16s, two Stream Decks, two macro boards on the left side, and a keyboard for my streaming PC. I can see all of them all of the time right now. And I do tap the underside of my mic arms sometimes, but having the visibility of my monitors and all of the keyboards and macro boards, I don't even think about it. I'm sure chat hates the constant of me like knocking it around sometimes, but I came from the same place you did. The PSA 1, the Ore shock mount, and then I picked up, this is a Rycote.
I have one of those for my PR40s.
Oh, okay. Amazing. Fucking awesome. It's a universal mic mount, which I didn't think could be good, but ended up being really, really good, and I love it. Love it so far.
Yeah, I honestly I actually have this mounted to the top of my monitors stands going over my monitors. So like, and again, it looks great. It works great. I can see everything fine. If I'm gaming, I put it a little bit over to the side and boom, it's fine. And I can still read chat and everything.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, boom arm is still very important. But a boom arm without a microphone,
it doesn't get you very far.
It's not very helpful.
Next question from Clipsawed. What is the best way to remove background noise from your stream recordings? Best option for XLR and USB mic setups. RTX on.
I'm malding. So there's 3 different approaches. Treat your environment, treat through physical equipment, and treat through like software post-processing. Quality in, quality out. Anything that you can do in your room to I put my, as cool as my gaming PC looks, I put it under my desk because there are fans there. And so that goes under my desk. I have some audio foam in the back, but I actually have in this room, I have 16-foot high ceilings.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And you can hear it a little bit. Like if you listen very closely, you can hear a little bit of the reverberations in there. I've got some like audio tricks to where I can still get a great sound out of my microphone without having to pick up all that weird stuff up there. And I'm not hanging audio panels or anything like that. I just have a few bass traps.
I've only heard it once when you got loud. That was it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So yeah. So treating your room goes a long way to like getting the 75% reverb there. Then what I do, and this is my like $100 trick that I tell people. Your microphone is going to come and say like, we recommend 50 decibels of gain on this microphone to sound the best. Drop it by like 8 to 10 decibels, and then use the makeup gain on the compressor to compensate.
Yep.
Do that so you make your microphone less sensitive, so it's picking up less of your room noise, and then you can just boost it up there, especially for situations like this. It's not going to sound nearly as much as if I like. Let's see if I can do it really quick.
This is why I still use a cloud lifter, even though I don't need it with the preamps that come out of the DBX, because I just want that headroom.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've got like I have conflicting information from you and what you're doing as far as the effectiveness of that, but we don't have to go into it. But I'm going to turn off the makeup gain. So I probably just got really quiet, right?
Yep.
And then I'm going to turn up the gain to where it should be. on my microphone, and I need to put the compressor back up.
Oh my God.
And now you hear way more of the room noise.
Yep. And breathing too.
And breathe. Well, I have my gate off, but I can throw my gain or my gate back off or on. But you can still hear that boo, like the reverb. You can hear that coming back on there just because I'm running my gain so much higher.
Yep.
And I don't actually sound really meaningfully different.
No, it's only in the back end of your voice, the reflections of your voice coming off of the walls and the monitors and coming back. Yeah, it's way, way different.
So I'm coming back now. I'm coming back to where I was before. There we are. We're back to where we were before. So yeah, so I use, and that kind of depends on the tools that you have at your disposal. I have the GoXlr, which uses a DSP post gain makeup, which is really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the only thing that could be technically better is analog. But what you're doing essentially, so when you send gain to a microphone, think of it almost as like a little globe around your capsule. The more gain you give it, the bigger that globe gets of what it's picking up.
Mm-hmm.
So what I can do is I can have it all the way out here. And then what I do with my makeup gain on the compressor is I just amplify what it's picking up in the globe by that many decibels.
Sure.
So what I do is I just close that globe a little bit more and then raise that up a little bit. You don't get some of like the richness that you get because there's I have a really nice bass amp back here, an Ampeg SVT Classic running into a Bergantino 410, and I love it. And it sounds so good, but you have to get the amplifier into a sweet spot. You have to get the preamp. Let's use mic terms, the preamp into a sweet spot to drive the speakers to the amount that they sound their best.
Mm-hmm.
And microphones have the same thing. There's a gain setting where microphones, and there's also a gain setting for preamps where they sound their best, their most crisp. But that's one of those like R/audiophile type things that you pick up that is, I might hear it, but especially over a Zoom call or a Discord call, you would never hear it.
Right.
My podcasters might hear it because they have my raw audio. My stream wouldn't probably hear it because I'm only streaming at a limited bit rate.
Right.
So by using the makeup gain on the compressor, I'm bringing up that globe volume, and ultimately I'm reducing that. And then from there, if by treating your room minimally and by doing some gain trickery, you can't get where you need to go, that's where you start employing the OBS noise suppressions, the RTX voices or whatever. But man, you got to be careful. Like I would say, if you're applying more than 5 to 15% on that thing, you're going to start getting that underwater garbly sound, and it's going to sound worse.
Yep.
And at that point, you just have to accept that your room isn't good enough to stream in. Maybe go to that's where I'm go to a nice headset. Go to the mod mics or whatever or something. Yeah. It's better to have a slightly thinner, or not slightly, but a significantly thinner sound that doesn't have all that background noise. I think the background noise is the number one enemy of great sounding audio more than anything else. It's not the compression. It's not the gate. It's the gate kind of because it's taking out the background noise, but it's not the EQ. It's not the de-esser. It's simply that whenever I open up my gate, it sounds like there's a refrigerator running in the background.
Right. Yeah, because I have both my PCs up on my desk to the right, unfortunately, because that's the only place for them to go. And that's always been a constant battle for me. No, dude, if they were, those PCs would be dead. If they were in this corner under these two desks, they would be dead. There's no way.
I think the reason why my PC does suck is because A, it's old, but B, it's also under
dusty.
there. I put my leg up on it sometimes. It keeps my thigh nice and warm.
There you go. I have to ask you to, you can quickly, if you want, to expand on your cloud lifter or any gain boosters. Because I know there's such conflicting opinions and results But I have found personally in my experience that with my DBX, if I don't use a cloud lifter, I have to have my preamp gain at 85% to get a usable signal. With my cloud lifter, it's at 10% right now, 10 or 15. And I don't have to battle with any of the preamp noise.
And that is where, like, and that's why, again, when people are like, why is the GoXlr so expensive? Like, oh yeah, we use Midas preamps. I'm like, cool. What does that mean?
Yeah.
It literally means that it has a noise floor in every scientific measurement that we've taken. There's an old tweet on my Twitter somewhere where I actually did like as scientific of a comparison as I can of like the GoXlr and an SM7B running at 55% versus a GoXlr and a cloud lifter running through condenser at 30%. And then I think I used a 18i20 and I used an M-Box, and the GoXlr running at 55 dB was cleaner than all of those other ones.
Without the cloud lifter.
Without the cloud lifter. Cloud lifter is not magic. It's still a preamp. It still has a gain. They just have a way that the way the circuitry works is it minimizes noise. I don't understand the specifics of it, and if everybody did, then we wouldn't have cloud lifters. Everybody would just build it into their thing. So there's some proprietary IP there. Midas, and again, I can't give away any of their IP though, but the reason why their preamps are so good is they're not cheap, but there's also just a lot into like the fundamental design of the preamp that eliminates and minimizes noise. And so if you've got a clean preamp, there's like it's a misnomer to say that the cloud lifter has no noise.
Oh,
It's
right.
low noise.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I'm not saying you said that, but like generally people are like, yeah, you eliminate your preamp noise, you get a cloud lifter. Yo, it doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. There is noise there, but it's generally lower than most of those $100 to $200 microphone interfaces that you get in preamps.
Is it worth
and like
the $150, right?
And that was ultimately why GoXlr. There's two reasons why GoXlr couldn't have ever been less than $400. It was the Midas preamp and the motorized faders.
Yep.
Those two things are what made the GoXlr like a non-negotiable $400 product. And so yeah, so that's just the thing. It's like in most, if you get a GoXlr or GoXlr Mini, I would challenge anybody to send me clips of them getting more noise out of that than they would with them both together. But I think with other solutions, the possibility is definitely there, and I'm all for a cloud lifter.
For sure. Yeah. I bought mine when I was way less knowledgeable, and I'm almost guaranteed that there's a good chance that I could get away with not having it, but I already bought it. It's already in my signal chain. I'm leaving it there. But I always love hearing the other side of the argument, alongside any other argument as well.
Yeah. And if you have one in it and you're using a regular thing, like that's great. That's fine. But if you get like a GoXlr or GoXlr Mini, or some of the new low noise, like the Mo2s have very similar circuitry to the GoXlr. I don't know what their gain numbers are.
Okay.
But
that was going to be my next question.
But try it without, and, kind of see the sound. I think too often we prescribe a cloud lifter as a room noise. Because the cloud lifter inherently does not remove room noise.
Right.
It removes preamp noise. Because you're not running your preamps so high. Like imagine you had a car with two engines, and then you had one engine, rather than having one engine rev up to 70 miles an hour, you had one engine that brought you to 35 miles an hour, and then you had another engine that could feasibly handle the other 35 miles an hour. They would still be significantly quieter than the 70 mile per hour engine.
Right.
Really bad. Like every car person right now is just like, F this guy.
Yeah.
But the fundamental idea is like when you can run those two things at a lower volume level, you can still get the same results, but not deal with that noise. And that is okay.
Yeah.
That's an okay thing to say, but just to say, like, you know, if you have a car that sounds like it's running 70 miles an hour, like it doesn't have a muffler on it.
Right.
Like a cloud lifter isn't going to help, dude. You need a muffler, man.
I think that's probably where the misconception comes in, is because most preamps in the hardware that streamers are buying kind of suck. So people go, oh, well, yeah, well, you know, you just need a cloud lifter and that'll just get rid of it. But now that we have more audio interfaces that are coming out with decent preamps that can power these microphones, I think it's starting to become less and less of a suggestion.
Yeah, well, and the interesting thing is that these Scarletts, they aren't meant to just be like a podcaster interface.
Right.
They were meant for music. You've got
instruments
bass and condenser. Instead, they kind of drive to get this tone that's so important for singing, that's less important for spoken word.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of, again, where it's like, let's rearrange the puzzle pieces, let's address the paradigm, and let's shift it, because streamers and podcasters need something different out of a preamp than a singer does.
Yep.
In so many cases. So yeah, that's my take.
Cool. Next question, also from Noble. Do you think we will get an all-in-one mic soon, or like 10 years out? It's hard to have all the equipment when some people are limited to a small desk space, and our all-in-one would be the saving grace for a lot of people. Well, that kind of exists already. It's called the GoXlr. The GoXlr and the fucking pod mic. I mean, there's no setup that takes a less footprint except the GoXlr Mini. But I guess, I mean, if you can't fit a GoXlr Mini on your desk, you can wall mount it.
I mean, I would say the Elgato Wave.
Great point. Yeah.
The Elgato Wave and some OBS filters.
Do you think that and I don't know what you know, do you think that they are going to expand on the software portion to be more inclusive of general Windows sound management, more input output? I don't know if it actually has any integration with any third-party drivers like ASIO if you wanted. Do you see them going in that direction, or do you see them keeping it as limited as possible, interface with a microphone, and just call it a day?
What other, like, can you speak specifically as like what other features that would need to be expanded?
I would love to see GoXlr software, like GoXlr software in a DAW fashion that people could use to put into their signal chain with microphones that didn't have a USB audio interface.
So yeah, so the one thing that the Wave misses, it just doesn't have a microphone signal chain at all. So you have to use OBS or whatever other thing to use it. But everything else about the Wave software, like as far as even though it doesn't have a physical routing matrix, you still have a routing matrix, just communicated in a different way through your stream or your headphone mix versus your stream mix. You have the ability to determine what your headphone output is and what your microphone input is and what your stream input is. On Mac, it's really cool because you can actually add and remove individual apps as devices in the program itself.
Okay.
So if you've ever used like, they used to be called Ambrosia. I think, are they still Ambrosia? Otherwise they're like, it's a different, I can't remember the name of the company, but there's a program called Loopback.
Yep.
And a program called Audio Hijack. And essentially they built that into the Elgato Wavelink app for Mac. And it ultimately then lets you go like, cool, I want Spotify to be this thing. And it just does it already because Mac already has aggregated device and everything like that. And so that's great. The problem with Windows is it's more of a limitation of Windows in the sense that you can't like add or remove devices like that. They're driver based.
Yep.
And so if you get 9 devices, that's why GoXlr has, chat, music, game, system, sample, and you can't change the names of those universally anywhere because those are actually driver generated devices. So like an all-in-one, I would argue that we're very close to there. The Elgato Wave Mic is missing the signal chain, and the GoXlr, like the GoXlr Mini, essentially is just like missing the microphone.
Right.
So I think we're getting closer. Like the Logitech actually does a lot of this already. They just haven't made the microphone for it, and they're owned by Blue, so you'd have to assume that they're coming out with something.
Mm-hmm. They have
or
to
Blue
be.
is owned by Logitech. They did their G Pro headset, and it takes it through all that different audio processing and stuff. They just never did the mixing part. So you got these sharks circling, and I think it's just kind of a race to the center to figure out who done it.
Yeah, very, very exciting. That's for sure. Which actually kind of goes into the next question as well. What brand that isn't in the space currently do you think would be in a position to make really great streaming centric hardware?
Depends on how you define it. Like, do you consider Shure in the scene?
No, not at all.
I think Shure could do a great job. Do you consider Audeze to be in the scene?
Audeze?
Audeze.
I have no idea what that is.
Audeze.
Yeah, never heard.
Amazing headphones.
Okay.
Really solid mobile microphones. What about Rode? Do you consider Rode to be in the scene?
They've got their foot in the kiddie pool. Like they are just starting
Everything
to get
is
in.
Podcaster.
Yeah, it's all
focused,
podcaster,
technically.
procaster. I would like to see a fucking camera company get in to do. I don't care. Even if you sell like a PCI card and camera bundle, like a 2-piece, just something. All it needs to be is, do you remember the Z-Cam where it was like a super small camera that was like a 4K cinema camera that had interchangeable lenses? No? Okay. I need a sub-2R like camera where it's got an FPGA chip, it's got onboard memory, but works with lenses. It's something that interfaces with the computer. USB is obviously an abomination. So pair it with some sort of capture device that links together. We just need a 1080p and a 4K version of a camera that works with Canon, Sony lenses. Because if you make it compatible with one lens, there's adapters to make it compatible with the others. I just know that the issue was always software and drivers when it comes to USB cameras. So it's going to have to be capture card related, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because like there's nothing keeping Elgato from putting the cam link into like a webcam portion of it and then having just a long USB out.
Mm-hmm.
So like for me, that screams like Elgato Corsair. They're obviously already in the space, but like, why aren't they doing a camera already?
Right. I know AverMedia's got their streamer camera that's going to be coming out pretty soon. I'll hold my breath until it comes out.
I think Apogee could do it. Like, I mean, I would love for Sony to do it. I've loved their cameras.
I'm surprised that we haven't seen more streamer-based peripherals, like either mice or keyboards that interface with Stream Decks, or keyboards that have we obviously have keyboards with dedicated macro keys, right? But macro keys that natively interface with these other peripherals that we have, like with mics and OBS and that kind of thing.
I always thought that we would see, once we saw Corsair and Elgato, they would just make like one of their Corsair keyboards and then put just a Stream Deck on the end of it.
Yes, or better yet, what I want to see is a keyboard that has 20 Stream Deck keys, but a single row of Stream Deck keys that are angled up at you, that cover the entire length of the keyboard. So it's still low profile. You still have as many keys, but it's not, because I'm somebody who I'm 400 DPI club when it comes to mice. So I need a small keyboard as possible for my mouse to be able to travel.
Yeah, I mean, I think the layout, there's a ton to like engineer on the layout of what that would look like, but like there's definitely room for so many different companies to make that space. I would have said like 3 years ago Samsung, but I think that ship has sailed. Roland swung and missed with their $1,500 like XVR1 or whatever it was called.
The VT3 and the VT4 are kind of under par or over par, excuse me, in golf terms. As far as the actual circuitry, it's messy. The VT3 doesn't actually have any clean or dry bypass. The VT4 is extremely limited when it comes to vocal effects compared to the VT3. So I consider them not even in the space.
Well, they did that. So they did that streamer board that was like $1,500.
I don't think I remember this.
The VR-1 HD. And now they do have the Go Live Cast now, which is like, I think also a swing and miss. But the VR-1 HD has multiple HDMI inputs and outputs, scene switching, macros. It's got 3 physical faders, but it's basically like a mini like TV station audio video thing. Whereas like that's not how. Again, it's they just like, how do we make a really cheap video switcher?
Right.
For a TV station, like AV switcher for a TV station, instead of going, how do streamers use this stuff and how do we rearrange that technology in the right in the right order? And
right. If you're trying to start a Joe Rogan podcast in your basement, cool. This is a great option. But otherwise, streamers aren't managing their video on a device level.
$1,500 is a non-starter. It doesn't matter what the features are or how good they are. It's a non-starter. Period.
That's expensive.
It's just like, I'm sorry. Like, yes, there are people who will spend $1,500 on it. Not enough to make it a profitable category for streamers and content creators.
Absolutely. That's a lot of money. Second to last question. I don't expect you to answer this. What is TC working on next? TC Elegon.
I don't work for them anymore. I can't tell you what they're working on. But I do know that there are people who are still on the projects who are super passionate about doing it. And so I hope whatever they come out with is awesome because I'll buy it.
Word. Last question from Noble Pastime. Donut or cupcake?
Donut.
My man. I would.
The bottom half of the cupcake is just worthless.
Right.
So
this is kind of true.
Every part of the donut is good.
This is true, especially when it's like it's frosting and frosting.
You have to peel off the thing, and it's too tall to put in your mouth, so you have to like eat the top anyway, and then you have the bottom that.
Yeah, all frosting, nothing but batter. Lame.
Yeah.
Well, my dude, 2.5 hours
did it?
went by
I didn't think
just
we would
like
go
that.
that long.
I didn't either. That's what she said, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm pretty confident that I can probably cut this off at like the hour 45. I don't know what your schedule is like for Sunday nights. And then we just kept talking and it just kind of kept going. But I loved every minute of it. It was awesome having you on. I really appreciate you entertaining a lot of this conversation, giving us a little bit of insight into the GoXlr world and kind of what we can look forward to in the future as far as like, you know, the ideologies of hardware and software for streamers that are trying to get into audio and trying to, you know, better their setup and stuff. So it was fucking awesome having you on. So thank you.
It was a great time, dude. We'll have to see the next time that we have a Twitter disagreement and see how long of a podcast episode we can turn that into.
Do you consider that a disagreement?
I think it was a disagreement. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it was fundamentally, I think that we still fundamentally.
We should have spent more time on it now that I'm thinking about it.
It's not a disagreement in the sense that I think that what I say has merit and yours doesn't.
Sure.
It's more that I just like fundamentally think you're wrong.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, looks like we'll have to schedule another
And
podcast.
Ernst does too. Ernst and I we're like 1, 2, 3 through 6 and 7. Here are your answers.
I love when
That's what
people answer
Ernst
that
did.
way, by the way, because I hate when somebody says, hey, why does my OBS crash? And I send 7 bulleted points and say, answer each one of them.
Like, yeah, the first one's like, check your upload rate and 6 other great things. And they respond back and be like, my upload rate is fine.
Yeah. Oh
my
my God.
upload rate is fine.
You're going to trigger me. All right. Do me a favor. Take some time to splurge. Tell everybody what you're doing on the internet right now. Do you have any shows that are coming up? Anything that you want to just throw out there into the ether? Go for it.
Sure. So I do host 2 different podcasts. One's an Overwatch League podcast called Tactical Crouch. You can find it at youtube.com/tactical crouch. I do a Valorant podcast called Spike Drop. You can find it at youtube.com/spike drop. Then I have my own personal YouTube channel that I do just kind of more stuff like this. I reviewed the Elgato Wave 1 and Wave 3. Do a lot of EQing and compressing, or like EQ audio, video review type stuff. But that's a newer channel, so I'd really appreciate any of the new subs. That's at youtube.com/John Horstman. And you can follow me everywhere at KickedTripod, Twitch and Twitter. I'm actually really close to a Twitch partner. I just completed my Path to Partner thing.
Awesome.
But I don't stream. I only stream 2 to 3 times a week for the shows. And then I don't stream games a whole lot because I'm too busy. So, but we're really close to Path to Partner. And, well, we are there, but I just need to I want to get 15 streams a month just to be a little bit over to be safe. So,
by the way, I went to your Twitter to try and find a link to your Twitch channel, and it's not there.
Correct. I ran out of space on the bio, and I think I ran out of space on the bio, and I think I have my YouTube link to right now.
You do,
because that was where I was kind of pushing
the traffic,
new people for right now. So yeah, but it is twitch.tv/KickedTripod.
Got it. Cool. If anybody is curious about his socials, check out the link in chat. It's got a link to our show notes where all of the social can be found. Thank you, everybody, for coming by, hanging out. For those of you that submitted questions both on social media and in chat, appreciate you guys supporting the show and giving us some content. It was awesome. Mr. KickedTripod, sir, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Thank you for gracing us with your presence, and I hope to do it again.
Absolutely. Let's do it again.
That's cool. All right, everybody, have a great night. We are going to raid another channel, so if you want to stick around after the credits, you're more than welcome. But to Tripod, sir, have a good one, and thank you.
See ya.
Thank you very much for checking out this episode of the Crocs and Hot Pockets podcast. If you would like to catch the show live, it airs on Twitch on my channel at twitch.tv/knackers at 9 p.m. every single Sunday. If you would like to check out the most recent episode of the podcast, you can probably click this little box here. And if you feel like checking out some of our highlights, you can maybe click this little box down here. And maybe I'll even put a little thing for you to click right here. No? Bye.